Hi, I'm Alex and this is Phil from the Southern Ukulele Store, and a few months ago we did a frequently asked questions video that seemed to help a lot of you. So we made a list of questions that customers have asked us on the phone since we finished part one, and there were some that kind of tallied more than others, and we thought, okay, well, some of these questions are going to be relevant to beginners, some of them are going to be very not advanced, but they're going to be for people that have kind of jumped over that first and second hurdle of learning the ukulele. But yeah, we're going to start with a few of the more common ones and move from there. Let's begin.
So the first question we had was, do I need a low G? So the best way to look at this is kind of where you're at in terms of playing. So if you're a beginner, I'd recommend going for something with a high G, like this. And the reason I say that is because that's how the ukulele is kind of traditionally meant to be tuned. That's going to be the best way to kind of start learning and get a real kind of feel for how the ukulele should sound. The ukulele being high G, it's a re-entrant tuning. That high G acts as more of like a melody string, and then the C string acts as kind of your lowest kind of bass string. So there's lots of kind of natural chord inversions and things like that that you don't really kind of think about, and that's why it's kind of best to use that to begin with.
But if you do want to go towards low G, which sounds a bit like this, none of these are tuned with a tuner, as you can tell, but you get the picture. I mean, a low G might suit the folk style, fingerstyle player, somebody that is adding bass to their chords and they're finding that the C string just doesn't go low enough, which is a fair assessment. You do open up the whole range of the ukulele another octave by adding the low G. So, I mean, if you were to play a C chord on a low G ukulele, you know, that bass just adds another dimension. You know, I'm not really sure how to explain it other than that. I imagine if you're learning playing to music, there will come a point where you're going, I need another octave, and the low G is the best way to do it.
I mean, I found it really useful for lead playing, especially like a blues style.
Yeah.
It just allows you to kind of get that.
You can show
lower.
off, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think the important thing to note, and the question that we get asked most, is whether a ukulele is coming to you, the customer, at high G or low G, and in 9 out of 10 cases it's going to be high G. We can modify instruments. You know, most shops, I would hope that if you say I would like it tuned and set up low G, as they're going to be setting an instrument up or checking the setup before they dispatch it, you know, as long as you pay for the string, you know, it shouldn't really be an issue. Certainly it's not for us to fit the low G for you. Certain low Gs work better than others as well, so we should probably touch on the unwound versus wound low G string. The wound low G, which is what Phil has there, is the bassier, almost guitar-like string, and then the unwound string has more of a traditional ukulele flavour to it. It doesn't necessarily boom quite as much. You get more of a kind of snappy lower octave when you strum. There are downsides to the unwound strings though, as Phil, who does a lot of setups, maybe you can explain that.
Yeah, like, I mean, unwound strings just being thicker, you know, it's harder to get them to kind of like balance in with the setup of the ukulele. Basically, we typically will file out the nut slot on the G just to make that kind of low G sit better in the uke. Certain strings require less setup and will work more naturally. So if you're someone who's kind of darting between a low G and a high G kind of setup, if you're kind of toying with it, I'd recommend the Fremont Soloist Squeakless low G. That works really well as something that you can just kind of throw on and off, whereas like a Worth low G is much thicker, so we just need to just make that a bit wider, make it sit in just a little bit nicer for you.
Yeah, one last thing to add is that as you play up the neck with an unwound low G, it's much harder to keep the instrument completely in tune. The unwound low strings just they kind of hide our natural flaws as players a little bit. The wound strings hide our flaws as players a little bit more because there's a little bit more resistance. I think it stops you from bending the note out of tune. we do get quite a few people that buy stuff like kanile'a tenors that say that it's not intonating properly, and the more they study their own technique, it's more often than not that they're not adjusting to play with an unwound low G, and it's immediately remedied by switching to high G or a wound low G. I hope that helps anyway. It is a as soon as you open the can of worms, it's just everywhere. There's too many questions, so it's a good starting point. Okay, so the next question today is, what should I look for from a beginner's ukulele? I would say that the more money you can invest in your first instrument, regardless of whether you're buying it as a present or for yourself, if you've never picked up an instrument before or you've been playing guitar for 30 years, if you spend less than £60 on a new instrument, there are going to be flaws and problems with it that will limit the lifespan of the instrument. I think that sometimes people coming in blind to musical instruments think that you can spend £40 on a ukulele and that will see you through the next 10 years. And it's true, a lot of people feel that way, and it's okay if you do, but it is unrealistic. The things you want to be looking for your first ukulele, I would say machine heads are very important. Plenty of the cheaper ukuleles are made out of a metal that resembles like a hard cheese, and if you use it 2 or 3 times, it's just going to crumble. What else you've got? Go on, what else?
Like the quality of the nut, just the nut being glued in is really helpful. Makes for just a more sturdy instrument.
The right size nut. Lots of instruments just have a generic nut and it overlaps at the edges, which means your string spacing all down the neck is wrong. Frets actually being a kind of metal fret. Plenty of the cheaper instruments, I did just name some brands, but I'm going to cut them out. But the cheaper things under £50, you need to make sure they've actually got proper frets, because there are plenty where we've tried playing the frets down to make them a workable instrument, and within 2 or 3 weeks of the customer having the instrument, the fret has worn out. And what are you going to do if you've got an instrument that didn't really set you up to play well in the beginning? So the key thing, if you can get something that's a solid top for £60 to £120, fantastic. It's not the be all and end all. A laminate instrument has a slightly more limited range of sounds, but when you're a beginner, the key things, the things that you need to learn, don't require you to be playing with massive dynamics. That does come later on in your life, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
After a few months you start to notice dynamics. So there's nothing wrong with a laminate. If you can get a solid top, it's a bonus. If you're looking for an all solid wood instrument at £120, my advice is that in 2018 when we film this, that an all solid wood instrument for £120, that's probably the only thing it has going for it, and the other components that make it that are a letdown. 5 years ago it may have been possible. We had a few of our own brand ones. They just aren't achievable at that price anymore, due to reasons outside of just being a ukulele shop, economic reasons and inflation. So if you've got a budget of £60 to £120, then look at the reputable brands. Call your dealer if it's not us. Make sure that they are quality checking their instruments. If your budget is £40 to £50, wait another month and spend £20 more, and you won't regret it. Anything you want to add?
I'd just say that don't worry, unless it's really essential. Don't worry about having a pickup installed in a beginner's instrument, or having something that's electro.
Good point.
As Alex mentioned about solid wood, and if you get solid wood, some of the other components aren't as good. It's kind of similar with electro. You're paying a lot towards having a pickup in a ukulele. The money's better spent on a better quality instrument.
A basic instrument with all the essentials done right is what you should be looking for.
So question number 4. How important is solid woods on a ukulele? So once again, all of these things have a slight element of being circumstantial to the player, but solid woods are really kind of important to a ukulele's sustain and its kind of tone and character, and its resonance, and it kind of, it improves like the kind of dynamic of the instrument, and it feels like it has a bit more kind of playability to it. But that does kind of come down to what woods are on the instrument. Would you agree?
Yeah, everything Phil's just said you will have heard before, but it's hard to put that into practice without having them in front. We're going to try, because it would take us all day just to kind of go through the different woods. But if you have a solid wood instrument, say mahogany, against a laminate mahogany instrument, a laminate mahogany instrument is going to sound fine. If you never hear the solid wood instrument, a decent solid wood instrument, and you just hear this laminate mahogany, it's gonna ring out nicely. There's going to be a good amount of sustain. It's probably going to be fairly bright, and then you compare and you add in that solid mahogany. That solid mahogany is going to sound richer. It's going to be a little bit. There's going to be more texture to it. It's a little bit like adding more flavours to your porridge. You know, the laminate's fine; it does the job. But then, if you add a tone wood into the mix, that's a solid top, especially, even more the back and sides. But that solid wood, richer. It's going to be deeper. As it ages and matures, the character's going to change as well. Not dramatically, but more often than not, the sound improves on an older instrument. That's the main reason you get all these people out there going very fruity for 100-year-old Martin ukuleles. It's kind of more about, it's as much about sound as it is about history. Mahogany's just an example. I mean, do you want to cover another one?
I mean, like, yeah, so mahogany has its own kind of flavour. Acacia, I think, is a little bit more kind of balanced for a ukulele. It kind of works better with like the body size. And it's because, as Alex touched on earlier, all the woods have their own characteristics. So, you know, we can help find you the ukulele you want for your voicing. If you're wanting like a brighter ukulele or a darker ukulele, Acacia's typically kind of very sweet and mellow. One thing I would say is that solid woods really affect like the ADSR process. That's the attack, decay, sustain, release of a note. So you'll find that sometimes the characteristics latch on kind of at the end of the note, and you really kind of hear them. So you get like this lovely kind of sparkle and zing to the start of the note and clarity, and then it kind of soaks on, and you get this warmth and sustain. Yeah, so many pros to solid wood.
Yeah, just to give you like the absolute like back of the book blurb. Is that right? Blurb. Yeah. So you've got Acacia, which is Phil/Adam just said, is a it's a sweeter, it's a more mellow sound. It's more ukulele like. Like, I have seen guitars made of all solid acacia, and they sound dark and dreary and quite horrible. I think the bigger the instrument made of acacia gets, the darker the sound. You know, with a baritone made of acacia, you get something that's incredibly complex sounding. Whereas if you get an instrument made of a baritone made of spruce and on the top of mahogany, you get something that's just very, one directional. It's it's got a lot of attack. There's so much difference. You know, the hardwoods like acacia, mahogany, respond completely differently to the softwoods like cedar and spruce. You see spruce on 90% of the guitars on the wall behind this camera have a spruce top, and more and more ukuleles have spruce tops and cedar tops as well. It's because more people are discovering that ukuleles have their own unique voicing, and you'll see many professional players kind of nowadays moving away from all solid koa instruments unless they're native to Hawaii, I suppose. And you see a lot more players using spruce tops because they need something that can give them a larger dynamic range and help them express themselves through music more. So the best way we can, as Phil suggested, get in contact with us. If you've got a sound in your head and you've heard a piece of music and you go, well, that's what I want, we'd love to help you figure out what wood it is you're after, because the world's your oyster, really. You do pay more for certain woods, is the last thing we should point on. Koa, Hawaiian koa, is expensive. Sapele, which is a fast-growing derivative of mahogany, is very cheap. So the price of the wood is usually the most important factor in the price of the ukulele.
Yep.
But that kind of touched on it for you all, and I hope that answers some of your questions. Okay, the next question is the question I get asked the most and have been asked the most for the last 9 years. Is can I tune a baritone like a ukulele? And I say, what do you mean, sir / madam? What do you mean you want to tune it like a ukulele? And they go, like my tenor ukulele. I've got a tenor ukulele, but my hands are too big. Or I currently play a soprano, but I want something that sounds and feels really big like a guitar, but I don't want to learn new chords. There's so many ways that people get to this question. But the question being, can I tune my ukulele GCEA? The baritone ukulele traditionally is tuned down like a guitar, so it's DGBE. Yes, you can tune a baritone ukulele to GCEA with a special set of strings and a bit of setting up. So there are currently, as I record this in late 2018, 2 strings on the market that do the job. The first are the Ukuleles. They do 2 types. They do the 23U, that's the number you want to type in, which is a white Nile gut, like the strings and everything on the wall here. Set of high G GCEA strings, 23U, the white Nile gut. They also do a set which is known as the 117U, 117U. That's the same string but dyed a charcoal colour because not everyone likes the white strings. They both tune to high G GCEA. But that feels to me like a slightly redundant set of strings, because if you're going to get this big body, you want something that's going to have the big low resonant note. So going back to our first question of tuning low G, Aquila don't do anything like that, no one does. We on our website have 2 options for you. The first option, you can take the 23U Aquila strings. If you type 23U2 on our website, a set of strings should come up that come with an extra string that you can use as a wound low G. And then finally, we do our own set, which I package up in sweetie bags because I'm weird like that, using D'Addario singles. I worked with D'Addario for 2 years on this, back and forth. We came up with a set that was low G GCEA. It has 2 wound strings, so you get all of the warmth, all of the depth from your baritone if you use these strings. And then the 2 nylon strings, they take a bit of time to stay in tune because nylon's stretchy. So as you tune them up to pitch, you get more kind of attack from them, but you're getting a crisper sound in the Aquila. The Aquila can sound quite muddy on a lot of baritones using those strings. So I'm not afraid to say that I think our strings are better than the Aquila option out there. They're around the same price, and I worked very hard, and it's actually the 2nd most popular item on our website. That's how many of you ask about baritones being tuned GCEA. So yeah, if you have a question about it and whether your ukulele is compatible, it probably is, but feel free to get in touch with one of us. Anyone here, not just me, anyone here, I must stress that, not just me, anyone here could tell you whether your baritone ukulele would be compatible, and we can fit these to baritone ukuleles that you're looking to purchase. I hope that covers it. I can go to bed now. No night. And the most important thing in the question you all want to ask now is, what's the most popular item on our website? It's the Fremont Soloist wound low G string. As Phil said in the first question of this video, this is the best low G on the market. If you've tried others, try this one. Okay, so the next question, really popular one, is, do I need a humidifier? And here in the UK, it's really the only place I can speak for. We get plenty of customers from kind of further afield, plenty of customers around Europe with just ever so slightly different climates, a couple of US customers. Like in the US, you'll be well aware that you have humidity issues in your area, or whether it's too damp or it's too dry. You'll know that better than we ever could. But here in the UK, we actually have relatively good humidity. The closer you live inland, the more relevant this question is, I think. In the whole time that I've worked here, I've known of 2 incidents where somebody has had the instrument dry out and crack. And the first incident was way up in the Scottish Highlands. Someone with a koa loa they kept it in their music room, which was also their conservatory. And the instrument, I think, during the winter had got very damp, like full of moisture. And they were actually contacting us saying my instrument sounds very dead during the winter. And then it came to June, July, and the instrument just dried up. It was probably exposed to direct sunlight, and this whole cocktail of different environments that the instrument was going through at home caused a small crack between the top and the side. So they benefited from a humidifier and keeping the instrument in a better controlled climate. On the whole though, in the UK, our relative humidity, if you Google our relative humidity of an average morning, it's normally somewhere between kind of 40 and 60. And if you're keeping your instrument indoors and away from a radiator, then you're likely, whether you know it or not, keeping your humidity at roughly the same kind of thing. There are exceptions to that. Some players out there are, people that keep the heating on all year round. Some people do. I think central heating is quite damaging to an instrument, so just keep the instrument away from the wall, keep it away from the surfaces that are affected by temperature. That's more important than whether you need a humidifier, because here in the UK, if you buy a high-end ukulele from us, quite often we supply a humidifier with it, so that if there is a warranty issue, we can tell the supplier that we're doing everything we can to kind of manage humidity. But I have 3 of these humidifiers still in these packages in cases that I own, and I can't anticipate that I'll ever take them out and use them. So I can only speak from my own experience, but yeah, in the UK our humidity is pretty good, and if you are going to use a humidifier, kind of use it maybe when you travel and not when you're static with your instrument for a long time. Okay, so last question of the day today is aimed at Phil and I. It's, if you were to buy a ukulele, what would you buy, and what do you currently play? So Phil's going to ask that question first.
So currently I play this ukulele, which is the ukulele that I made last year. Yeah, last year. I've had it so long that I've forgotten when I made it. Which I made with Pete Howlett, which was a really great experience. So I played that one. If I was going to buy any ukulele in the store, I think I'd go for a kanile'a tenor. I love how they sound. They've got this wonderful kind of richness and bass response from that, really, really clever bracing technique inside, and that really light body and that slightly bigger bout. So that would be my kind of thing. It wouldn't really suit my playing because I play bluesy kind of stuff, which is why I have the wound C and the wound low G, but I just love them. I think they sound great.
Before I answer, let's talk more about your uke, because I don't think you touched really on that. So what size is your uke?
So my uke is a tenor ukulele.
And when you were building it with Pete, that's McCrory, is it McCrory?
Yeah, it's all solid McCrory with a rosewood cap on the fingerboard, the headstock, rosewood fingerboard and rosewood bridge.
Cool. And did you what did Pete do for you? Because for those that don't know, Pete does building courses. He sent Phil up just as a thank you for, we've been working together with Pete for years and years. So Phil went up and built a uke as a kind of thank you from Pete. And what did Pete do before you arrived, and then what did you do on the course?
Yeah, so Pete bent the sides, and we had a really kind of cool chat about it. And he was telling me that bending the sides, bending wood is a really kind of difficult skill to master, and so more often than not, it can, wood can break when you're bending the sides, and it's just a really time-consuming process. So he does that for you. You get this wonderful kind of insight to how it works. He's got these amazing jigs up there which make it idiot-proof, which was really essential for me actually to build it. So I playing the top, playing the back. So the thickness of a top and the thickness of a back really impact the sound. So I think the top of my instrument is about 1.8 mil thick, I think, and then the back's about 2.3, if my memory serves me correctly. I I can't think of the right terminology, but I kind of rounded off the edges to make them smooth. And the biggest thing is that I crafted the neck. So Pete shows you how to do it, and it's just this amazing feeling you get once you've done it, that you've handcrafted the neck yourself. So this was like a square L-shaped piece of wood. I'll hold it kind of close to the camera.
Maybe we'll do some. See.
So it was a square piece, and then you use like a rasp and you file away at it like that, and you kind of work that arch in. And
how many hours does that take?
So the neck was like a whole day's work. So like the neck was like an 8-hour day of just crafting it, and then the actual headstock carving, you don't do that. You just there's like a router, and you can use a template and just work it in, which is really clever. So some of the templates and things like that really speed up the process. But normally it takes people about 5 full days, and I think I built this one with Pete in about 3.5.
So that's without the sides.
Right, without curving the sides. He was very kindly going to let me curve some sides with it, but we just ran out of time. We were talking too much about other things.
But you highly recommend the experience.
Yeah, it was just.
I mean, you play that all the time.
I play it all the time. There's so much playware in it, but I absolutely love it. And yeah, it's a great experience, and I really feel like, despite the fact that this is Pete's recipe, I really feel like this sounds like my uke somehow, and I think that's a really special experience to take away from.
Definitely. I mean, I know we went off a tangent from what the original question was, but a lot of people ask Phil about his experience up with Pete, and we're around Phil all the time, so we don't really care. So I thought it was important to ask the questions at a time where we could document it for all of you. But yeah, going back to your well, that makes me think. You think how long that takes, and then you look at kind of the cost of certain instruments, like things like Sumis, where there's no modern tooling involved in the process of the build.
Yeah.
And you think, well, okay, well, how can an instrument be £3,000, but then the koa that's used in it is just, super high quality, can't be used anymore.
And this is very plain. When you see a Sumi and it's got all that decoration up the fingerboard, you can see this is nothing.
I mean, Pete's kind of more deluxe instruments, some of the ones you'd see on Pete's website. I'm sure you'll all have heard of Pete Howlett, but have a look at what Pete does, because, I mean, just the highly figured koa and really kind of precise, beautiful instruments that he does. I love how good Phil's ukulele is, and if that's a fraction of what Pete has, knowledge-wise to pass on to people, then testament to Pete, really. Going back to answering the question, it's irrelevant what ukulele I play, because I change my mind all the time. So I'll film this video, and between now when I film it and when I edit it and put it on the website later today, I'll have already in my mind bought and sold 2 or 3 instruments. I have absolutely no block stopping me. I see something and I passionately want it, and I love it. I'm like I'm like a magpie. But my favourite ukulele that I've ever owned was an Imua. I still own it. I sold it and I bought it back off of a customer 6 months later, and that's how I know that I should never sell it again. I had to lose it to realise how much I missed it. So I have learned, for what I do, which is mainly restaurant work and just kind of occasional noodling and songwriting. I like spruce tops, and I like mahogany, and I like koa. So I've owned kanile'as, kamakas, kawaias, koaloas. I've owned ponos, I've owned kalas. It doesn't really matter. All of this experience is there if you need it as the customer to ask me. I've owned Beltonas. I've owned a Big Island. Most of the ukulele. I've owned a Martin.
Laprinzi.
I've got a Laprinzi. Yeah, there's just so much there. So the 3 ukuleles I've got at the moment, I've got a spruce top Imua with koa back and sides, which is very plain to look at. It's a satin top, but it's ordinariness, if that's even a word. It's what's ordinary about it is what makes it sound so good. I think that the fact that it's plain helps the sound. It cuts through. It sounds like a tenor. I can make it sound like a soprano. I can make it sound like everything but a concert, and I love that about it. My other ukulele is a Salt and Pepper Kala Elite, which I like because it's got a big thick neck, which for me, I feel it adds a lot of sustain. Like I feel the instrument vibrating when I play it. It kind of, I don't play that as much as the Imua. I find that I go back to it. And if I could own a ukulele, it would be a Sumi. The first time I saw a Sumi ukulele at the NAMM show 2 years ago, it completely blew me away. And we've had 4 or 5 in since then. And every time one comes in, I'm there and I'm contemplating what I can sell, things that I can't live without, so that I can have one, because I just see so much worth in those instruments at that price. So yeah, I mean, if I could pick one instrument, it would be either a Sumi Hummingbird, which had a maple back and sides with a spruce top. That was amazing. That was one of the best ukes I've ever seen. Or a Sumi tenor made of koa, although I think that the bling stuff is not necessarily for me. Final question related to this that we get asked is, what's the best uke we've ever had in? What's the best ukulele you've ever seen here?
Oh, that's a really good question. Off the top of my head, I'm gonna go with kanile'a tenor again. Like the black labels are really great. Hey Gunsy.
Come on in, Gunsy.
Hey Gunsy.
We filmed this before the shop opens. Gunsy, the question is, what's the best ukulele we've ever had in?
Hello. I would say, best uke. Oh, thanks, big old Phil. I would say we had a Collings in.
Yeah, the Collings dog.
And that, to me, I thought was really good. Either that or the KSDLX from kanile'a. The spruce top and the koa back and sides is beautiful.
When I sold that Collings, I put my business card in and I said to them if they ever wanted to sell it, to contact me. So yeah, that was a really good one. And for me, it was quite recently we had 2 red label koa tenors, which had spruce tops, koa back and sides. They were like the only ukulele I've ever really felt and heard that sounded better than a normal koa KTM 00 to me. Yeah, thanks for joining at the end.
No worries.
But anyway, that's Phil, that's Gunsy, I'm Alex, and we'll see you again soon.